Hey everyone, it's Scott Hansen from NFL Red Zone reminding you to watch Sports Ballers, the podcast that gets you caught up on everything Washington sports and beyond.
Podcast. I'm Cory Puffett, joined as always by Eric Meyer and Evan Ash. A little different this week. Well, not too different. I mean, we've seen Eric on vacation pretty regularly on the show because he's always on vacation.
Beastie Boy's always on vacation, apparently.
It is episode 148. It's my 50th time hosting, so hooray for that. Eric's 50th time will be next week, followed by Evan's, as we approach episode 150 of our podcast. Holy crap, that's crazy. So Eric is in South Carolina, Evan is in Atlanta, and I'm up here in good old Maryland. And we're going to go ahead and get right into things today. We're going to start in the NBA, as we usually do, with some playoff talk. Eric, of course, has been watching very closely. So let's jump into things. We'll start in the West today because one series is already over. The Suns finished off a sweep of the Denver Nuggets. Apparently just like that Suns fan predicted right after he finished repeatedly punching a Nuggets fan in the face. How did I not hear about this?
I don't know. Were you not on the internet at all? Because it went viral and it's great. The Suns ought to have him sitting courtside their first home game during the Western Conference Finals because he is an icon.
I mean, I was in Connecticut this past weekend, but it sounds like this happened before the series even began. So,
no, this happened during Game 3, I believe.
Okay, so I might be off the hook on not knowing about that.
It was on the internet though, man. Like it was pretty prominent. So I guess some backstory on that. So, Suns fan was attending Game 3 in Denver. And he was being harassed by some local fans, one of which had a Lloyd Christmas haircut. And he took a swing at the Suns fan, who then promptly turned around and completely tuned him up, just wailed away and kicked the crap out of him.
Basically, like Nolan Ryan and Robin Ventura.
Yes.
It was like
that. God.
Yes, it was the dude looks like he knew how to fight, like hockey style, because he maintained one hand grabbing on the dude's shirt so he couldn't get away, and the other hand just giving him uppercuts right to the chin. And the dude was completely cooked. And then he tells his buddy basically, that's what happens when you mess with me, or something along the lines of, throws one more jab in there and then says, Suns in 4, by the way, holds up the 4 fingers. And that's the iconic image. And he was right. The Suns did win in 4. They finished off a sweep of the Nuggets yesterday.
Sounds like that guy was an asshole.
Well, I mean, he definitely deserved.
Asshole.
He had the right though to beat that guy's ass though, because he didn't instigate it. He just finished it and then rubbed it in their faces.
Did he need to punch him that many times though?
Probably. Yeah.
I mean, somebody takes a swing at you. You hit him until the message is delivered.
I'll find the actual video and I'll watch it before I pass final judgment. But
I think the message was adequately delivered.
Yeah,
it sounds like it. The Suns outscored the Nuggets by 63 points over the 4-game series, so an average of almost 16 points a game. And then, Eric, tell me about what happened with Jokic in the final game. Apparently he was ejected, and I guess, was it Karl Malone who was surprised that he got ejected about it?
I mean, I don't care about anything Karl Malone has to say because Karl Malone is Karl Malone. He's scum.
Well, that's why I'm wondering, like, was it Karl Malone? I just saw Malone, and I assumed it was Karl.
It's Mike Malone is the head coach of the Denver Nuggets.
Well, then that's probably who
it was not. I don't know why Karl Malone would be asked nor providing his opinion on that.
I don't know the names of the head coaches in the NBA.
Maybe you got it confused with Post Malone.
No, not Post Malone either.
Okay.
No, none of that. So Nikola Jokic had a little bit of a frustration foul where he decided he was going to go take a swipe at the ball, but he wound up pretty ham-fistedly and came down really hard and kind of caught Cameron Payne a little bit in the face with his swipe at the ball. He caught the ball, so it wasn't like he wasn't making a play, but the refs decided to hit him with a flagrant 2 for the foul, and that meant that he was automatically ejected from the game. I thought flagrant 2 was unnecessary for this case. It was definitely an over-the-top action, but I don't think it had the level of intent to injure, not even close, to warrant an ejection. I think a flagrant 1 would have been a more appropriate call. I'm not sure how the refs decided that they were going to kick the MVP out of the game for something like that, because it wasn't that extreme.
Yeah, I mean, if he made contact with the ball, it seems like, he was trying to make a basketball play.
Yeah, again, it was definitely unnecessary action by Jokic. He didn't have to rear back and take a swipe like that, but it also wasn't like he punched the guy in the head or something like that, or Ron Artest elbowed James Harden across the dome when he wasn't looking. This was more, I'm trying to make a play, but I'm also kind of pissed, so I'm taking a little anger out on this swipe, and he caught the dude in the head. Flagrant 1 was warranted. Beyond that, not necessary. I disagreed with the decision.
In any case, the MVP has been eliminated. The Suns will sit back and relax and await the results of the other semifinal in the Western Conference, where the Utah Jazz are currently leading the LA Clippers 2-1. The Clippers finally won a game on Saturday and did so in blowout fashion. It was a big night for Kawhi Leonard. He had like 12 rebounds and a crap ton of points, and Playoff P actually showed up. I think he scored 31.
Yeah, Paul George is the best player on the court in Game 3, which is not something you expect to hear in a playoff game because that's not what he does.
Even though Kawhi outscored him by 3 points?
George was still the better player. Kawhi had a slow start to the game. He really picked it up as the game got out of hand. George is the reason why the Clippers maintained the lead through most of the second half. And then when it became blowout time, that's when Kawhi started to fill it up a little bit. So the timing of the buckets matters more so than necessarily the final score.
Absolutely. So what are your thoughts on this series so far? Does this win for the Clippers on Saturday, do you think that that's a turning point in this series? The Clippers can get back in this and potentially win this series? Or do you think the Jazz are still your favorite to win this one?
I mean, I still have the Jazz winning the series because they're up 2-1. They've got home court advantage. They've got another shot, I believe, tonight to try to take a game on the road. And so with that being the case, they've still got the upper hand. They have to win 2. The other team has to win 3. The math indicates that the Jazz are at an advantage, but there are some things that have changed a little bit with the series. Namely, Donovan Mitchell is not healthy. Like, he's playing, he's suiting up, but he had an ankle injury that put him out for 16 games at the end of the regular season. We sort of discussed the controversial decision not to play him in Game 1 against the Grizzlies last series, which he was pissed about. But as time has gone on, as attrition has taken hold, and as the Clippers have continued to try to basically take advantage of that, namely Paul George deciding to truck him in garbage time in Game 2. Totally unnecessary on Playoff P's part there. But he's starting to show more and more a little bit of that pain coming in. And with Mike Conley also being out, and we're not really sure what his status will be, the Jazz keep saying that his hamstring situation is mild, but he hasn't suited up for any of the first 3 games, and I'm not sure what his status is tonight. If neither one of those guys are 100%, it's going to get really dicey. Now, they can still get by if those guys play well. At least one of them does, and they're at 100%, because then they can sort of attack what the Clippers are trying to do defensively and handle some of the adjustments that Ty Lue has made. But I still think that the Jazz are the better team. It's just that the Clippers they've discovered something, which they kind of discovered in the second half of Game 2 where they made a big comeback, and then it continued to work in Game 3. Which is what alarmed me the most, the fact that Quinn Snyder couldn't figure out how to adjust and to solve a little bit of what the Clippers were trying to do. So we'll see if that comes to fruition a little more, maybe if Mike Conley returns, because it's kind of hard to attack a defense without one of your floor generals, and that's what Mike Conley is. If he's able to get back on the floor and Donovan Mitchell stays reasonably healthy, the Jazz shouldn't have too much of an issue getting this done, but with health being a factor, it could go 7, I think.
So anybody who listens to our podcast regularly knows that I don't really watch a whole lot of NBA basketball. I'll tune in from time to time, particularly during the playoffs, but I haven't watched any of this series. Eric, of course, has. Whatever that something is that you're saying the Clippers discovered in the second half of Game 2 that allowed them to come back and lose narrowly in Game 2 and then run away with it in Game 3. What will it take for the Jazz to shut that down? Because it sounds like you're saying that momentum may really have shifted, that the fact that it continued to work in Game 3 indicates that, and maybe the Clippers could end up taking this series.
Yeah, again, the Jazz have to figure something out because their offense has been stifled a little bit. The Clippers went zone in the early mid-third quarter part of the game when they fell behind 21, and the Jazz had no success against it. Zone defenses are, they're pretty gimmicky, so
we've talked about this on the show.
Yeah, and I'm not going to get into the whole, zone is for soft people or anything like that. But the Clippers whipped it out at the right time and decided that we were down 21, let's give this a shot, and it worked. It got them back in the game. And then Game 3, they kind of played a little bit more aggressively, an attacking style defense where they really got in the faces of Donovan Mitchell and sort of took the Jazz guards out of their element a little bit. And potentially having Mike Conley come back, who's a veteran who can handle situations like that. And if Donovan Mitchell adjusts or Joe Ingles adjusts or Quinn Snyder makes some changes to his lineup, then they'll be able to handle that, because I just don't think the Clippers defense on talent is good enough to slow the Jazz down long term. It's just a matter of when the Jazz put the pieces together. If they can't do it in the next 2 or 3 games, the series could flip the other way. And the thing is, it doesn't matter if the Jazz score a whole bunch of points if they can't get stops too. And the Clippers were red hot from 3. That's par for the course for them. They're the best 3-point shooting team in the NBA. They sort of figured out a way to mitigate some of that success in games 1 and 2. Game 3, it changed mighty quickly. But at the same time, I've talked about Game 3s. After the road team loses the first 2, on the road, they come home for Game 3. They're energized. They're in front of their home crowd. And they sometimes catch the other team sleeping a little bit, and they punch them in the mouth. Game 4 is usually a more competitive game, and that often decides whether the series is going to be a long one or a quick one, because if the Jazz win tonight, it's probably over. They go up 3-1. They've got 2 more at home. The Clippers are dejected at that point. They're probably advancing to the Western Conference Finals. But if the Clippers are able to win, then this series is probably going 7. So it's just tonight's a big deal. It goes without saying, tonight's a huge deal.
Moving out to the Eastern Conference, you got the Bucks-Nets series, which is currently tied 2-2. The Bucks have won the last 2 games. They fell down 2-0 to open things up. And big part of that has been James Harden is hurt right now, and now Kyrie Irving is also hurt. So, what do you think about this series at this point, Eric? Have we seen the last of... we were talking briefly before the show. You don't think that we're going to see Kyrie again this series, most likely. Do you think that James Harden has a realistic chance of not only coming back, but actually being able to contribute in a way that will allow the Nets to win 2 more games and give Kyrie a chance to get healthy for the conference finals?
Well, I don't know if Kyrie's going to be back anytime soon at all. He leaves the arena in a walking boot and crutches. That alarm bells go off at that point. I realized that they said x-rays were negative, so no broken bones, but that was a pretty severe ankle turn that he had. I'd be surprised if he doesn't have a high ankle sprain, which means that's 4 to 6 week injury typically likely in the NFL world. And so, frankly, basketball, it's not obviously as physical as the NFL, but
you're using your ankles at least as much.
Yeah, you're jumping, and Kyrie cuts and changes direction a ton. Oh, yeah. So having him not have healthy ankles is a crisis. So it doesn't seem like he's going to be back anytime soon. Like, if they advance, he's probably out for the conference finals. He might be able to make it back for the finals if they get that far. So the Nets need James Harden back. And hamstrings are tricky. We know this. Hamstring injuries, it doesn't take much to re-aggravate them. That's why he's here.
Dr. Yes. We Notice on the show.
Notice on the show, yes, making another appearance. So I don't know what his status is. They said that he's working out now, but Steve Nash said something about he needs to show multiple days of being able to handle a full load in practice and stuff like that. But they're never going to actually tell us how's he actually doing. If he's not doing well, they're going to keep that secret. And if they think, oh, well, he might be back for game 6, well, that's wonderful, but they don't know that really either. It's sort of a day-to-day thing. And the reality is, even if he comes back, he might be just as liable to strain it again. And at that point, he's probably toast for the rest of the playoffs. And then the Nets are screwed. So they kind of have to play this where they have to play it a little bit safe. They have to hope that maybe KD can get it done in a game 5 at home by himself, basically. I don't think he's going to. And then game 6, they'll figure it out. And maybe they can manufacture a series win here without their guys. And maybe they can have more assurance that Harden will be healthy when they play either the Sixers or the Hawks, more likely the Sixers, because they're going to need 2 of those guys to beat Philly. If it's just KD, it's not going to happen. Like I said, I think Kyrie's done for a little while. So they need to figure it out. And like I said, I don't think it's going to happen in game 5 if it's just KD. I realize they're at home, but Kevin Durant, as great as he is, he's never functioned in high-level offenses without a really good point guard with him. He had Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma City. He had Stephen Curry in Golden State. And he's had both Kyrie Irving and James Harden in Brooklyn. Without those guys, they lose a big playmaking factor. And the Bucks have guys they can throw at KD to make life hard for him. PJ Tucker was getting all up in his grill, and Steve Nash is complaining, basically saying it looked like it wasn't basketball with some of the physicality that the refs were letting go, which basically means PJ Tucker's going to pick up 2 quick fouls in the first quarter in game 5. But nevertheless, KD's going to have to figure out how to get others involved or else they're not going to win. And that's not typically what KD is asked to do.
And what happened with that whole incident
Cory
between
frozen now?
PJ Tucker and
He is.
He's just pensive looking.
I don't think he's that pensive.
Okay.
Oh, am I
I hope
frozen?
he got all that because that was a lot.
Great. Let's fix this.
So how's your trip been so far?
Not too shabby.
Sorry,
I went to the beach today.
Sorry to cut off Evan and Eric, but it seems like this is a weekly issue with Skype. We really need to find a new medium, or maybe
For a second.
Evan
was
just
not-
needs to get back to Maryland and start coming in person, so we don't have to use Skype anymore.
Okay, well, I hear you, but you're still frozen.
Oh, well, that
He's
doesn't
unfrozen
matter as long
for
as you
me.
can hear me.
Okay, well, did you get all the stuff I said about KD not being able to lead an offense?
Yes, it literally, you guys were fine. I could hear you fine. The people can hear you fine. It was just that you guys couldn't hear me, so I had to quit Skype and reopen it while you guys were talking about whatever you're doing on vacation.
Okay, well,
Anyway.
Are we good now?
Yeah, so we're good. And my question was going to be, is you thought that I was being pensive. I was actually in the middle of trying to ask a question. What happened with that whole incident with PJ Tucker and Kevin Durant, where some security guard who I guess is employed by the Nets but basically works for KD was my understanding of how, what happened there?
Well, PJ Tucker, like I said, has been very physical with Kevin Durant when he's guarded him.
Got up up in his grill.
He got in his face and barked at him a little bit, which happens. And I guess KD's bodyguard felt that he needed to go out there and handle things, even though he's playing a basketball game, and this happens all the time. It was a pretty soft look for KD, even though it wasn't really his fault. Whenever you've got somebody that has to come in and step in for you, when it's just a basketball squabble, it's not like PJ Tucker hooked him or something like that. It was just we got into each other's faces, and the bodyguard's coming onto the floor in the middle of the game. That's just unacceptable to me.
Didn't we say something similar about an incident last week about it was kind of soft for KD even though it wasn't really his fault?
This seems to happen a lot.
yeah. KD surrounds himself with drama, so therefore, even when he's not necessarily the instigator of it, he still gets partially part of the blame because he creates an environment like the thing that Jay Will said last week, where he basically said, "Don't ever compare me to Giannis," or whatever it was.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
The only way Jay Williams,
but
the only way Jay Williams could go on TV and say that with any credibility is if it sounds like something Kevin Durant would say. Like if he said that about Steph Curry, or if he said that about Anthony Davis, we'd be like, There's no way he said that. But Kevin Durant, it's very much a possibility.
So that game, that series could very well go 7 games. We'll have to see. But obviously, if James Harden doesn't get back and if he's not healthy enough to contribute, the Bucks could take that 2-game winning streak they're on and go the distance.
Yeah, and another thing to keep in mind is, like I mentioned, both guys have already been ruled out. Both Harden and Kyrie have been ruled out for tomorrow's game. So the earliest Harden could be back is Game 6, which is a road game. So even if he comes back for that, if they're down 3-2, the Bucks will still be favored to win that game, even if Harden is there.
Sure,
so
yeah.
This is dangerous territory for them no matter what.
Whoever wins that series will get to face either the 76ers or the Hawks. We've got another series where a team has won 2 straight. The 76ers have won by 16 points in each of the last 2 games after Atlanta took Game 1. And Joel Embiid has been virtually unstoppable. He averaged like 40 points over the first 2 games, and even though he cooled off from that standpoint in Game 3, he was still a huge factor in the win.
Well, a big part of the reason he cooled off a little bit is because he didn't play the fourth quarter. I mean, the Sixers were blowing them out.
Yeah.
And it kind of got a little closer to respectable during garbage time. But
I think Atlanta only outscored them by like 4 points in the fourth quarter, if I remember correctly.
Right, but the point is that it was never really in doubt. And Embiid went to sit at the end of the third quarter. Probably would have come back in at the 6-minute mark or so for closing time if the game was close enough. But it wasn't, so he didn't. And as a result, they took the lead 2-1. I think that this is sort of playing out the way I thought it might after Game 2, because it looked like the Sixers were going to struggle to win Game 2, and then they went on a huge run towards the end of the third quarter and into the fourth and pulled away. And a team like Atlanta has a lot of talent. They've got a young star who can wreak havoc on you, but the Sixers have the defensive personnel and the coaching to figure you out when you're under-talented compared to them. And that's what they were able to do in Game 2 and Game 3. I expect that to continue, to be honest. I think the Sixers are going to win this. Maybe the Hawks win Game 4, but I think the series ends in 6.
So maybe not the gentleman's sweep, but you definitely think
I give the Hawks enough credit that they could pick up another win, especially if Embiid has an off night or gets hobbled because of his knee or something like that. But they're clearly overmatched. I give them credit for competing like they have, but congratulations for making it this far and build on it. But the Sixers are just better right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, very happy to see the Hawks doing well. It's it's not something we have grown accustomed to seeing very much of. So it's always good to see some of those teams get better, and it's one of those kind of frustrating things in the NBA because you'll see a team like that make the playoffs and look pretty good, but there's no guarantee that they're still going to be good the next year. I mean, we've seen the Wizards, occasionally have a good season and be a 4 or a 5 seed and maybe even win a series on rare occasions, but it doesn't last into the next year more often than not. So do you think that the Hawks really have something that not only can be built upon, but that will be built upon?
I think so, because they had a couple of teams in the mid-2010s where the one year they were actually the number 1 seed in the East in 2015, and they
bounced by LeBron.
They smoked the Cavs during the regular season that year. They won like 62 games or something like that, and then they just got swept in embarrassing fashion by the Cavs come playoff time. And then they had a couple more seasons where they made the playoffs. They played the Wizards in the first round in 2017, I want to say. The Wizards beat them in 6 games.
Yep.
And that was sort of, I think the organization, whoever runs the show there, realized that's the ceiling for this team right now. They had Paul Millsap and aging Dwight Howard and some other guys, and they were just like,
forgot that Dwight was with that team.
Yeah, and there were some other guys, and they just looked at it and said, we can't do any better than this. We have to tear it down. So they traded Paul Millsap to Denver. They let Dwight Howard either leave or they traded him to the Nets. I don't remember exactly how they got rid of him, but they really tore it down to rebuild, and they sucked for a few years. They got Trae Young. He's a guy they can build around. They've got DeAndre Hunter, who's really talented. They've got Red Velvet, who had a nice game in Game 2. He went 8 for 8 from the field. Shout out Red Velvet. And they've got Bojan Bogdanovic. They've got a lot of good players that this team needed to build a solid playoff team. I think they need another star if they want to win a championship, which is going to be hard to come by, but I think that they're going to be a fixture in the East that can do what they did this year, which is win at least one playoff series. And depending on the luck of the draw, they could challenge to take it to the conference finals and maybe win it if all things go their way. They kind of remind me a little bit of the Portland Trailblazers with Dame Lillard over the last 7 or 8 years, where they're always in the playoffs and results may vary once they get there. But I think they'll stick around.
Okay. Any other NBA news to be aware of?
Space Jam comes out soon, I guess.
No
I
Woj
guess that
bombs
counts.
since we started recording.
Yeah, I mean, Space Jam looks cool. They're making like a fake 30 for 30 commercials on ESPN, which is very entertaining. I enjoy those.
Oh, my goodness.
So yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to we got a couple of topics to talk about within the NFL. Starting with Russell Wilson, who I believe I have either 32 or 31 confidence points on him being the starting quarterback for the Seahawks in Week 1. And you guys felt like I was way too high on that. Well, got some good news for me this week. Because Russell Wilson reported to the final week of OTAs in Seattle and says that he wants to stay with the Seahawks despite some, quote, unfortunate frustrations at the end of last season. So,
Kyrie Irving said he wanted to stay in Boston. So
he said he was going to sign an extension.
Yeah.
Like he said it to the fans in the Boston Garden with the microphone in his hand.
Yeah.
Well, Wilson actually showed up to OTAs. That's more than Aaron Rodgers has done in Green Bay.
Yeah, well, we know he's gone. Nothing that happens in OTAs is relevant except for injuries. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. Why would you bother showing up and potentially getting injured at OTAs if you're not planning to stay with that team?
Maybe I don't think it's important, anything that happens in OTAs. It's always, so-and-so looks great in OTAs. Well, shouldn't he? He's a professional athlete.
I think showing up matters. I agree that what happens on the field isn't necessarily that relevant, but the fact that you're there, I believe, is.
I think it's more about what he's actually said, where he's trying to basically say, did I say I wanted to trade? I never said that. Come on, guys. He's playing coy with the media and with his teammates about some of the grievances that he aired at the end of the postseason last year, where everybody said, oh, snap, he wants out, which is why Evan and I didn't put a whole lot of confidence in him returning. I don't know if Evan actually had him going somewhere else, but
I didn't have him leaving. I just had him, down lower in the group of quarterbacks that I had to stay.
So my pipe dream of Russell Wilson being traded to the Saints is thoroughly dead, because I think he's going to stick in Seattle. He's going back there, and I think this
dead on really the Saints. Yeah. The Saints don't have any cap space for the next 10 years.
They've never had cap space for the last 5 years, and somehow they stay good. It doesn't make any sense. They're cheating. I don't know how they're cheating. They're going to get caught, and it's going to suck. But for now, I'm rolling with it. I'm playing mob wife when it comes to this.
Somebody should ask them if they're using illegal sticky stuff to put
a little spider tack,
stay under the salary cap.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Russell Wilson, I think, is going to be back with the Seahawks. I'm at the point where it's no doubt for me.
We'll get to the sticky stuff later in the show. The other bit of news from the NFL this week, Le'Veon Bell took to social media to more or less put Andy Reid on blast. He said, "I'll never play for Andy Reid again," which, I don't
think that's going to be a problem.
He's not going to be in Kansas City this year, but I don't think Kansas City really was, interested in holding on to him anyway. Andy Reid's not going anywhere. I just find this whole thing laughable. So after the fact, Le'Veon Bell, I don't know that he so much apologized, just said, I regret putting it on social media, but I don't take back what I said because I definitely feel that way.
So you don't regret it. Okay. Well,
Le'Veon Bell's done.
Yes.
He's done. He's done. That's not to say that he's not going to be in the NFL in any capacity at any point in the future as some sort of a role player, right? He could be that guy who comes in to spell the starting running back, but he's not going to be the every down back ever again. I don't even know that he's necessarily going to be the third down back ever again. I don't see it.
Le'Veon Bell is out of the league, right? So saying he's never going to play for Andy Reid again, like, neither am I, right? Like, it's not going to happen. So he's gone. This is the end. On today's happies, we're going to have happy trails to Le'Veon Bell from the NFL, because he's gone. Goodbye. That's fine.
Yeah, I agree. I've kind of come to the conclusion that, Le'Veon Bell is a little overrated historically. I mean, let's face it. The whole, oh my God, he's so patient as a runner. Yeah, he can get away with that because his offensive line is amazing. Try that anywhere else. You get tackled behind the line of scrimmage and your coach is yelling at you. His whole unique style of running was purely a product of his team. So when he can't do that anymore, which is just about anywhere else because not everybody has Pittsburgh's offensive line, he's trash. I mean, he's straight trash. He can't play. He's done. It's laughable that he would even try to say, oh, I wouldn't play for that guy. I'm like, well, if that's the only guy offering you a check, because it probably will be in that circumstance, you're going to play for him. So why are you hating?
Mm-hmm.
Just a very bizarre situation there. And
it's like, Le'Veon Bell. That's what we're used to.
Beggars can't be choosers. And I'm sorry, Le'Veon, but right now, you got to be begging for a job if you want to stick around.
Done, son. Done.
Moving on to Major League Baseball. And before we actually get to the baseball that's happening on the diamond, we'll talk about the baseball that's happening on the internet, on the computer, where I got to give a shout out to friend of the show, Andrew Perez. He finally handed me my first loss of the fantasy season. I'm 8-1. Beat me by 1.5 points.
Oh wow, squeaker!
Yeah, squeaker. I was winning
Sunday
by
night baseball squeaker.
I was winning by 1.5 points going into the final inning of the final game of the week. Craig Kimbrell had pitched in the Cubs' last 3 games, and who comes out to the mound for the save? Craig freaking Kimbrell gets the 3-point outing for Andrew, flips it from a 1.5 victory for me to a 1.5 point victory for him.
I also have to take
all
some
while
credit.
Matt Olson is sitting on my bench, having hit 2 home runs yesterday.
I also have to give him take a little bit of credit. I said, hey Drew, you might want to pick up some starters for Sunday because you got 2 left.
Jerk.
I'm sorry. I saw that and I was like, dude. And Drew said to me, wait, I didn't even realize I could do that. I'm like, how are you 6-3 or whatever it is? Or 7-2. I'm like, how are you doing that well when you didn't realize you can sub out pitchers day to day to get your 7 starts?
Well, Drew is now 6-3 despite not really having that impressive of a team. I mean, he's ranked number 5 out of 8 in our power rankings for a reason.
Yeah, and I'm like 3 points behind you in total points, and I'm 4-5.
Right.
I hate this. I've only won games when I've been the high scorer. Like, it's ridiculous. It's just like, are you kidding me? But hey, if I keep being the high scorer, then I'm going to be just fine. So
there you go. And I mean, you've pulled pretty close to me in the total points category, but it's amazing because I think your points against, you're averaging like around 134 some points per game, but your points against is like 133 per game.
It's unbelievable. Everybody turns into the 27 Yankees when they play me. It's ridiculous.
So congratulations to Andrew. Finally knocked me off my high horse just before the halfway point of the season. We got 11 games to go. He played 9. So that's where we're at right now. Evan's doing pretty well. He's 7-2. He was the number 2 scorer in the league last week. Yeah, so we're all doing really well. Eric has just been massively unlucky.
A little snake bitten early, but we can turn it around still.
Yeah,
we can pick up some lucky wins and even this out.
Plenty of season left. Let's talk about the actual baseball that's happening out there across the country. I'll start with my Yankees. Just a brief synopsis of what's going on with them. Last week, we talked about how things were just, opposite day. The Orioles had been on a tear over the previous week, and the Yankees just couldn't buy a win. Well, I said we better sweep this series against the Twins, and looked like we were on our way to doing that. We won the first 2 games on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we lost Game 3, got swept in a 2-game series against the Phillies, and now we get to play a 3-game series against the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are they're so good. They're so good. How are they 3rd place in the East right now? They're so good. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is unstoppable. Lord Gurriel has been hitting on a tear lately. I think Sean picked him up, and he's actually been doing some pretty good work for Sean, even though Sean's team is still kind of trash. We're sunk. There is some article on the At Bat app that I was reading today talking about past seasons. I think it was like 5 times that the Yankees started out poorly and then ended up making the playoffs. And one of them was like 2007 when we ended up like 18-5 after 23 games despite losing 2 of our first 3 games, and it somehow counted that as a terrible start that we should be freaking out about. Like this is not that. This is not good. We're a game above 500, and that's not going to last through this series. We'll be lucky if we come out of the season at 500, because being swept is completely within the cards, and honestly, I would say expected in this series. So something massive is going to have to happen to change things, and I don't see that on the horizon. So I'm not holding my breath.
Do you think it's poetic that the Yankees fired Joe Girardi because they wanted to go in a different direction, and then he's managing the Phillies
and they
he
sweep
sweeps
us
them?
in a 2-game set? Yes, absolutely. That was not lost on me. And I like Joe Girardi. I don't dislike Aaron Boone, but honestly, I thought that we didn't need to get rid of Girardi when we did. There were certain things that frustrated me about Girardi, in particular how quickly he would hook pitchers, even when they were pitching their asses off. Like, they give up 1 hit, like their first hit they give up in the 6th inning. You'd be like, yep, you're done. Like, he's thrown 76 pitches. Let him stay. What are you doing? But I think at this point there's a lot more that frustrates me about Aaron Boone than ever frustrated me about Joe Girardi.
He needs to tighten it up.
he needs to tighten it up now. Umps are not the problem right now for us. Only 3 teams in baseball are worse than the Yankees over the last 10 games. Guesses as to which 3 teams those are.
Well, I looked this up. Okay,
earlier. Well then let Eric guess.
So. I know the Padres haven't played well, but I don't think they're as bad as the Yankees.
They are not as bad as the Yankees over the last 10.
For the last 10, huh? I don't think the Orioles aren't as bad either.
Not the Orioles.
No, not the Orioles.
The Orioles are 2 games better than the Yankees over the last 10.
Fancy. So the Yankees are what? 2-8?
2-8.
Okay.
3-7. 3-7 over the
3-7. Okay. Alrighty. There's some teams that are just plummeting down the standings. I'm trying to remember.
He's down here highlighting it for you.
The Colorado Rockies?
No.
The Arizona Diamondbacks had a long losing streak.
Yes, the Diamondbacks are one of the 3.
Okay.
The Diamondbacks are either 1-9 or 0-10 over the last 10.
They've lost all of them.
Yeah, I think they're 0-10 over the last 10 games.
Yeah, they just keep losing.
Then there's another team in the NL who's 1-9 over that stretch.
The Pirates. Got to be the Pirates,
nope.
Right? Really? No, not the Pirates.
The Cardinals.
Oh, geez. Okay.
And the only reason I would have guessed that is because Alex Reyes hasn't done anything for me over the last 10 days as my relief pitcher. And then there's one team in the American League that is 2-8, so they're a game worse than the Yankees over the last 10.
Oof. It's the Rangers?
Nope. The Royals.
Not the Rangers. Royals. Okay.
Yeah, so those are the 3 teams. That's the list. 3 teams worse than the Yankees over the last 10. It's not good.
Yeah, it's tough.
Luis Severino had a rehab start this past weekend, but he left with a right groin injury. So glad that it's not the arm, but we're awaiting MRI results the last I checked. I think he was getting it today. They may have gotten the results, and I just haven't seen them. But that's likely going to be a setback that's going to delay his return. Zach Britton has been taken off the IL, the 60-day IL, so he's made, I think, 3 or 4 appearances in the minors, and the target that Aaron Boone said was between 4 and 6 appearances, so it sounds like they're getting ready to bring him back up to the Major League club, but, well, I guess relief pitching has been a little bit of an issue this past week because Aroldis Chapman went from just a god who could not be touched to giving Alex Mayo like -7 points in fantasy this past week. He helped.
Yeah, he
Eric
was a
lot.
-7.5.
He had like -6.75 in one game. How do you let a reliever stay out long enough to do that?
Well, he gave up a game-tying home run, and then he gave up a 2-run bomb that ended it.
Yeah, so it was a loss and a blown save.
And 2 home runs and 4 earned runs
and all the runs and the hits.
And all the hits. Yeah, it was a disaster.
And I think he only got 1 out of all of that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then he lost more points the next night because he had to come in during extra innings, and he gave up the runner on second. So no, he didn't give up any earned runs,
but he still
got the loss.
Yeah.
So he lost points for the loss. And I think I think he also walked a guy. It might have been a pitch around situation. So it was unfortunate,
rough for him.
Great for me.
So Zach Britton coming back will hopefully bolster the bullpen and help us to be relying on some of these guys a little bit less.
But y'all can't hit.
But yeah, we can't hit. So what our bullpen looks like is not even that relevant right now. And that's only gotten worse because now Aaron Judge is having back spasms because, of course, he is. Finally, it seems like this is the year that he's going to stay healthy, and nope, never mind. Other than him, we're healthy, so there really is no excuse right now other than just we suck. We suck.
Yeah, y'all are bad,
That's
man.
all there is to it. So you guys tell me about your Orioles.
Well, I just think. Yankees fans are on suicide watch because the team is a game over 500. Oh, I'm sorry. The Orioles are 20 games under. It's just I don't.
It doesn't feel like that. It feels like we're behind you guys at this point. Like I'm pulling my hair out over here.
The same Yankees fans who can't bear to watch this team that's a game over 500 are also the same people like 27 rings. Check the 27 rings. I'm like, well, you check the 27 rings then. And relax.
Exactly. Yeah. When you sit there and you flex about how you're the best franchise in North American sports history or whatever, you don't then get to complain about being 1 game over 500, 65 games into the season. That seems a little much. But I do, for the circumstances, I do understand Yankee fans' frustrations, not because, we're the Yankees, we're always supposed to be good here. It's more about this team was supposed to be good. This collection, this iteration of the New York Yankees was supposed to be a pennant winner, and it looks like they're not even going to make the playoffs. So that is rightfully a disaster. And I
picked them to win the World Series.
I'm just glad that I didn't pick them to win the World Series because now I still have a chance. I mean, the Padres have not looked great lately, but
they're at least going to the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and so the thing is, though, I looked at this 5-game stretch that they had. I was like, okay, 3 against the Twins, who are bad, and then 2 against the Phillies, who are middling at best. And I'm like, okay, the Yankees ought to win 4 out of those 5 at least. They won 2. I was like, wow, they actually got worse than the last time we talked. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That tells me that they're no good, because if you can't take advantage of the easy stretches, I don't know what the hell you're going to do when you have to play division games that aren't against the Baltimore Orioles.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
when they play Tampa Bay and Boston, you have to beat those teams.
I beg of you, no more Yankees. I want to hear about your Orioles. I don't want to talk about the Yankees anymore. I'm so frustrated.
Okay. So you're not going to do a wardrobe change then?
I'm not a fair weather fan. I'm a Yankees fan till I die.
Okay.
But I don't want to talk about them anymore right this moment.
Forgive me if, not being a fair weather fan. It's just drizzling right now. It's not even raining hard. There's no tornado coming. It's just a little sprinkle.
When you're not used to any kind of precipitation, the drizzle feels like a torrential downpour.
Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about the torrential downpour. The Orioles since our last show, have won 1 game out of 5. Not being too. They won the first game against the Mets, like the night of our show, but then got demolished by the Mets the next night because Matt Harvey sucks. He said so himself.
Yeah, not our words.
Yeah, he was a bit more colorful than sucks. You can look that up. Yeah, he's been terrible. He pitched really well for like the first couple weeks of the season, and then it's just been a batting T ever since. His ERA is, I think it's like 8 or something on the season. That's approaching Brian Mattis land, and that's not where you want to be. So the Orioles followed up their beat down from the Mets by getting swept in St. Petersburg by the Rays. That series wasn't that close. I started Randy Arozarena in fantasy yesterday. Of course, he hit a grand slam. I knew that was going to happen against the Orioles pitchers. Tampa Bay is really good, and the Orioles are really bad. So, it's just kind of par for the course. News this afternoon that right-hand pitcher Dean Kramer has been recovered from AAA to start tonight's game in Cleveland. So hopefully he's figured out some stuff down in AAA. It's not just going through the motions or anything like that. I think the biggest news in Orioles land down at AA, Grayson Rodriguez, we talked about him last week, how he's the top pitching prospect in baseball. He's making his first home start tomorrow night in Bowie. And all of Orioles Twitter is going crazy. I know Orioles Twitter is prone to going crazy over small things. That happens pretty much on a daily basis. People just melt down. But like this game tomorrow night, I think everybody's going, except like me and I guess Eric because he's on.
Yeah, I would have been going if I was at home, but unfortunately I'm here having fun.
Yeah, so I imagine Adley's going to be catching him. Apparently there's a promotion. You can bring your own gas can to the game. I don't really understand that one. I feel like pitchers and gas cans don't go together.
Well, if you throw gas versus you light the field on fire. Yeah, if you bring the gas can to the mound, you're going to, you basically light the game on fire because you suck. Yeah. But, if you throw gas, I don't get it. I wouldn't bring... I'd have to find an empty gas can because you're not going to have to bring a full one.
Well, you'd also
who has an empty gas can? Everybody around here freaked out and filled all their gas cans when we thought there was a gas shortage.
We should have put your gas in plastic bags instead. Obviously. So the Bay Sox tweeted, you can bring a gas can, but it has to be brand new. It can't have been used at all. It's like there's still remnants of gas.
They're going to check all of them and smell them to make sure that there's never been gas in them?
I imagine so.
That's going to be a pain in the ass for whoever is taking tickets.
Seems unnecessary. Just come up with a better promotion.
Also seems dangerous to be sniffing gas fumes.
Be huffing it. Yeah, it'd be great.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, that's what's happening. So the Orioles start off tonight 4 in Cleveland and then 3 at home versus the Blue Jays. I don't think we're winning any of the home games against Toronto. Let's have a team that bashes the ball all over the yard come to the smallest ballpark. Like that's not a recipe for success, particularly against our pitchers who are terrible.
Including John Means lately. He's not been doing very well. And now he's hurt,
been on
the
injured list past week or so. He had a shoulder. But he'd been
struggling for the 3 or 4 starts he'd made prior to going on the IL.
No, he hadn't. I think he certainly struggled in his last start, where his.
I'm pretty sure he had a couple other games in there that he was struggling pretty mightily.
Okay, well, I mean, he hasn't thrown a no-hitter. Also, something else that hasn't happened since John Means' no-hitter on May 5th, the Orioles haven't won any road games since then.
Oh God.
They've lost all of them. So, they're hitting the road again. So, best of luck to them in Cleveland this week.
Elsewhere in Major League Baseball, you got some other stuff to talk about this week. Let's start with the Chicago Cubs. They are one of 8 teams now in Major League Baseball that are below the 85% vaccination threshold, which essentially the 22 teams that have met that threshold have significantly relaxed protocols concerning COVID within their clubhouses. I don't think they have to wear masks. Social distancing is either not enforced at all or at the very least significantly relaxed. The Cubs are
Go out
among...
to eat on the road.
Yeah, they're allowed to eat on the road. The Cubs are one of 8 teams that have not met that threshold, and the reason that the Cubs are being highlighted is because there have been a few players specifically that have been mentioned. Anthony Rizzo is one of them, who is, I believe, on Eric's fantasy team. So congratulations, you got an anti-vaxxer over there playing first base for you, Eric. And then also Jason Hayward, who was quoted in an article in the Chicago Tribune, basically talking about how we need to pay more attention to the fact that fans are getting vaccinated, and they've had 3 sold out stadiums at Wrigley this past weekend against the Cardinals, which, congratulations. I fail to see how that in any way applies to the conversation we're having about the players in the clubhouse getting vaccinated. He says that the Cubs players trust each other to not do dumb stuff, but they've got players who are not getting vaccinated. So that kind of undermines that statement. What do you guys think about all this?
I read this article like 1.5 times. Like, I couldn't make it through the second time. I was so irritated. Jason Hayward, what are you even talking about right now? Like, oh, it's not. Don't worry about me not getting vaccinated. What about all of them? We had 40,000 people here this weekend, every single game. It's like, well, we're not talking about them though. We're talking about you. And he failed to articulate why he doesn't want to get the COVID shot. There's really no good reason, but the reason he gave was that he got a flu shot one time, and he, it made him a little sick, and he had to miss a game or two, and then, that's how vaccines work. Like, you get a little bit of the virus, so when the real virus comes along,
in this case, you don't even get a little bit of the
off.
virus. The mRNA vaccine, you don't even get a little bit of the virus. It basically just gives you the code for you to make the antibodies to fight it off if you get the virus in your system.
Well, there you go.
So this isn't even like that kind of a vaccine.
Yeah, and then the idea of trusting your teammates not to do dumb stuff is comical, because their teammates choosing not to get the COVID vaccine, which is unwise at best.
And I think it's Javier Baez who is basically like doing like, I guess, vaccine awareness. Like, he's trying to get more people to get vaccinated. He's kind of gone on that tangent. Similar, I don't know if you guys saw, Markel Fultz was doing like some videos where he was talking to medical experts to get answers and putting that online for fans to be able to see, like, these are the facts about the vaccine. This is safe. This is why I'm getting it. This is why you should get it. And Javier Baez is doing some similar things to try and raise awareness of the safety of these vaccines. And apparently he and Anthony Rizzo have kind of butted heads a little bit about it. He says that they've remained respectful toward each other. And like, Javier Baez is not throwing him under the bus or saying like Anthony Rizzo is a dumbass for not getting it, even though he is. But it's just like, I don't care what's happening in the stands within the context of this conversation. Like, stop trying to deflect. We can deal with that separately, whether people who are coming to these games are vaccinated or not, whether they're dividing the stadium into vaccinated sections and non-vaccinated sections, which I hope that that's what they're doing. They should be doing that, but I don't know if that's the case. But that's a separate conversation. We don't need to have both of them at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, vaccine awareness, like, I'm pretty sure you're aware that there's a vaccine.
We're aware of vaccines. It's about awareness of the safety, which, it's weird because, like, at this point, on one hand, it's like, I genuinely applaud Javier Baez for doing that and trying to, get more people to accept that the vaccine is safe and that they should take it. But at this particular point in time, I don't know who he's going to reach who hasn't been reached by somebody already.
Yeah, I'm reminded of Ron White talking about the bladder control problem awareness group. Like, if you have a bladder control problem, I'm pretty sure you're aware of it. So, if there's a vaccine to get, it's available everywhere. They have vaccines at Walmart now. Here, you just show up. Hey, stick me. I want it. You don't have to make an appointment. You don't have to do anything. You just walk over there, between the butt wipes and the candy. It's just right there. So there is no excuse at this point for not getting the vaccine. You should get the vaccine. If you're refusing to get the vaccine, you are a fool. There's really nothing else to it. I don't want to hear about, oh, well, you should be respectful of my decision because it's my body. Well, no, you're a fool. I'm telling you right now. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to be politically correct and gentle and everything. You are an idiot. So just get the vaccine and shut up, please.
Yeah, I mean, there was an article that came out, I think it was in the Washington Post the other day, and I think one of you guys said in our group chat, it was basically like, apparently...
That was me.
Yeah, in places where vaccination rates are high, COVID cases are decreasing substantially, like really substantially. In places where people are not getting vaccinated, they're going up, which, no doy. But if you live in one of those areas where people are not getting vaccinated, COVID cases are not just holding steady, but are rising, I don't think that Javier Baez is going to, change your mind at this point. So, unfortunately, those people are just going to do what they're going to do. And, the rest of us need to just be aware of where people are vaccinated and where people are not vaccinated, and either stay away from the latter or at least mask up when we go there, just to be a little more cautious.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, there's also a correlation between people who aren't getting vaccinated and people who supported the former president.
Well, yes, there is that too. But that's not the only. That's really not the only thing that is playing into people not getting vaccinated. I think we've kind of touched on this a little bit before, and I won't go into a whole tangent on it. But there's so much misinformation out there that you don't really have to convince people that the vaccine is dangerous. You just have to convince them that it might be dangerous, right? You just have to sow that seed of doubt, and you go from, there's 4% of people roughly in the country who think that the vaccine is more dangerous than the virus itself, but there are 25% of people in the country who don't know whether it's more dangerous than COVID itself. That's the problem, and that's those are not all people who support the former president. There are plenty of other factors that play into people being hesitant toward vaccines. It doesn't make them any more right, any more empathetic, or doesn't make me feel any more sympathy for them or any different kind of way toward them. I still think that they're morons for not getting it, but you can also understand it's not because they are horrible people who support the former president.
Oh, okay. My only hesitation was I don't like getting poked with sharp objects. I really don't like that. But just be an adult, right, and go get the shot.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
it costs $0.
We could go down a much deeper rabbit hole about this, but let's get back to the baseball, because back to the Cubs and their players who are hesitant to get vaccinated, and the more than 15% of players and staff members on the other 7 clubs that are below that 85% threshold. It ultimately just comes down to how badly do the players want to play the games and not have to deal with any potential postponements. We haven't seen any of those for COVID so far, but that doesn't mean we can't. We certainly have seen some teams get bitten by COVID issues. The Yankees dealt with some COVID issues among their staff, along with Gleyber Torres, who I don't know if he ever actually tested positive for it, but he was sick during that time. We're not out of the woods. You could still see some spikes going forward. It really comes down to how badly do the players want to play the games, how badly do they want to get back to normal, not have to wear masks in the dugout, be able to do all those things that they're used to being able to do as professional baseball players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are the same guys who will have somebody cut a ligament out of their leg to stick it in their arm so they can pitch again. But you don't want to get a COVID shot. Does this make any sense to anybody?
Who do you think developed that procedure for Tommy John surgery? Doctors. And it's not the exact same doctors that are working on vaccinations, but they were educated by the same system. They follow the same guidelines, the same practices, the same protocols for safety to make sure that people who have this operation performed on them, who take this drug, who get this shot, will be safe. Doesn't mean it's going to be 100% safe. Some people who get Tommy John surgery may not recover. Some of them may end up
2 and 3 times.
Yeah, some of them may end up with infections. I mean, that's we saw Alex Smith have a crap ton of infections after his surgery on his leg last year, and that's not a procedure that we've never seen done before. Maybe not in the NFL, but we've certainly seen it. Who do you think is developing these vaccines? What protocols do you think that they have to abide by that other doctors don't?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the surgeons just, they get a little dissection kit from a school supply store and be like, oh, let me just cut some people up today. Like that's not a thing.
Yeah. So, specifically among these teams that are below that threshold, one of the risks is that if somebody does test positive, obviously anybody who tests positive for COVID will be removed from play. But if they're playing, if they're below 85%, the other team is below 85%, then even one positive test could lead to that team having some games postponed because they don't want to risk, it spreading within their clubhouse, much less spreading across to the other team that is below that threshold and so has more players that are susceptible to the illness. So it's something to keep in mind. And, along this line, we saw during the Memorial Golf Tournament, John, is it Rahm or Ram?
Rahm.
But he was leading the tournament by 6 strokes after 54 holes. So he's pretty deep into it. And a 6-stroke lead, that's a big lead. It's unlikely he was going to lose that. This was, 2 weeks ago? And then he was informed that he had tested positive and had to withdraw from the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
He lost out on potentially more than $1.5 million in winnings.
Yeah. But
Get the shot.
He hadn't been vaccinated. So,
shot.
It was like, what are you doing? What are you waiting for? They have it at Walmart. Just walk in. So, at least learn from John Rahm, who lost $1.5 million. Just, there it goes.
Yep. Last week, I think we briefly touched on the stuff about the foreign substances that Major League Baseball, I think at that point they were announcing they were going to look into it. Well, this week, they are they're preparing a memo to send out to all the teams. The plan is that they would send this memo out to the 30 clubs to have the managers and the GMs and the coaches, make the pitching staffs aware that they're going to start doing sweeps looking for these foreign substances that pitchers have been reportedly using. And then about a week after they send the memo out is when they would start having umpires look for it. So basically giving a little bit of a grace period, an opportunity for the pitchers to, figure their stuff out, clean it up before they start nailing them, because they really don't want to suspend anybody. In fact, they're hoping that between the memo and the reports that the media has been making, that the pitchers will be scared straight. That's their words. So that they don't have to catch them. Their plan, I believe, is to essentially, the way that it was described in the article I read was it's going to work like a DUI checkpoint, where the umpires will check randomly throughout the game, as many as 10 checks in a game, and possibly multiple checks on any given pitcher, so that the pitchers don't think, oh, well, they checked me in the second inning, so, when I go to the dugout before my third inning, I can just, get something. They're going to check on a random basis position players to make sure that that they're not, passing along substances to the pitcher during mound visits and things like that. So they hope to primarily do these checks between innings and as pitchers are exiting or entering the game, in order to prevent it being a big slowdown in the action. Because the game is already slow enough. We don't need any more of those. Exactly, Evan. But so that's kind of the plan with all that. But the funniest thing that's come out of this whole situation over the past week was, and unfortunately, we got to go back to the Yankees, because Garrett Cole was asked very explicitly, very directly, if he used spider tack specifically, right? Sticky stuff. And he said everything under the sun except no.
Right. He went around and around and around. He paused. He mumbled, and
he's like, I don't really know how to answer that.
Yeah,
just say yes. You may as well. You've already admitted it by not saying.
Yeah, it's like,
no.
Hey, I've got the whole jar of peanut butter right here. I just glob it right on the baseball, and there you go. Like, what are you talking about? Just imagine you were being questioned by your significant other. You're fortunate enough to have one of those. And it's like, hey, did you do such and such with so and so? And you just sit there for a long time, and then I don't really know how to answer that. Like that's like, hey, guilty as charged. You got me. I just admitted it. Like, what are you talking about, Garrett Cole? Really? I don't know how to answer that. You could answer with yes or no. You could start there. So you didn't say no. So it sounds like there's a big glob of goo on every pitch ball you've thrown.
It's like if you're married and your wife asks you, do you find this other woman attractive? And you say, define attractive.
Yeah. I don't know how to answer that.
Just say no.
Well, those are the type of questions that women shouldn't ask if they're not going to like the answer.
Well,
so,
true, but still, like, better than to not say no.
Yeah, but then they're going to accuse you of lying, and then they're going to badger you.
Okay, but at that point, like, that becomes her problem. You can wipe your hands clean and say that's your problem. It doesn't mean that you don't deal with any repercussions. If there's some, but you've done nothing wrong at that point.
Except, lie.
If you did lie.
Well, chances are you lied, because usually they're only asking if the woman's actually attractive.
Sometimes honesty isn't the best policy. Okay.
I mean, honesty is the best policy, but by process of elimination, dishonesty is the second best policy. So you're still doing okay.
Now I'm lost. I'm confused.
Again, you're not lying.
Right? Yeah, exactly. But anyway, yeah, Garrett Cole uses spider tack, and frankly, I think this whole thing, this Major League Baseball draconian lockdown on anything and everything foreign substance related on the mound, is unnecessary and dumb, because the players don't care, the hitters don't care, Pete Alonso doesn't care. Pete Alonso straight up said that Major League Baseball changes the rules and the equipment based off of free agent classes to keep salaries down, which is why they juiced the balls when a whole bunch of pitchers were coming up and then they're deadening the balls right now, and a whole bunch of hitters are coming up for free agency. That's his conspiracy theory. Apparently, that's shared around the league.
Tinfoil hat-ish.
Probably.
Has there been any like research that's been published as far as like looking at does it line up? Like does Major League Baseball juicing the balls line up with when a lot of pitchers were coming up? Are we not having any pitchers coming up right now?
It sounds like something somebody's uncle would post on Facebook.
Yes, but the problem is, though, if that view is prominent around the league, then there's even more distrust between the players and the owners and the front office and Rob Manfred, which is never good, especially when you've got a labor fight coming up that we know is going to be hell on earth. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't give a damn what the players do as far as foreign substances. If the players don't care, like if the people that have to hit against these pitchers say we straight up don't care that they do it. In fact, some of them are glad they do. Some of them like it
because it gives them more control.
Yeah, and so they don't hit them in the dome with a fastball. They just put it by them. They'd rather have to deal with that. I think it's just this is draconian and unnecessary. But, I mean, if it forces the pitchers to adapt, that's fine. I mean, they got to do what they got to do to try to compete at the highest level. But I just think it's over the top.
I mean, my opinion is like, I mean, I understand it has more control, but like you can get the ball to break so much. Like the pitches are unhittable, even for major league hitters. And, the sport is so boring when nobody hits the ball ever. So, just somebody hit it somewhere. So if that means restricting the miscellaneous goo that the pitchers can use, then so be it. But like all the other sports change the rules every year to make sure that the product is entertaining. And Major League Baseball doesn't do that. And now they're trying to do that. It's kind of ham-handed and clunky, but, they're at least trying to do something. Eric, a question for you. You actually used to pitch baseballs. Do you ever put any some molasses or some honey or some super glue or anything?
Nope.
Somebody...
I didn't use rosin, didn't use anything. I just went out there and threw the ball.
Okay. Yeah, somebody pointed out, I can't remember where it was, but I heard today that it was Ron Darling on the Tony Kornheiser show from last week. He was like, you notice how pitchers don't go to their mouth anymore to like lick their fingers to get a little moisture? That's because their fingers are so sticky, their fingers would just stick to their tongue and they'd be stuck.
Yeah, and the stuff on there is probably pretty gross, so they're probably just like, I'm not going to do that.
Just get a big ice cream cone lick full of Spider Tack. Also, Spider Tack available on Amazon for $20.
So maybe the reason I didn't make the show was because I wasn't using any sticky stuff. I was just going out to throw the ball.
Yeah, you needed some sticky stuff.
That's my excuse. It's not my lack of talent. It's just I didn't cheat.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah,
whatever makes me feel better about myself.
I wonder if Garrett Cole left a review on Amazon.
That'd be hilarious.
You'll have to check. So at this point, we are well over a third of the way through the season. In fact, I think we've been a third of the way through the season last week when the Yankees had already played their 60th game. And quick standings update around Major League Baseball in the East. Got the Rays ahead. They are 18 games above 500. Boston's 3 games back of them. Toronto 7.5 back. The Yankees 8.5 back. And then the Orioles, who are 20 games below 500, are 19 games back. So it's getting pretty dire for the Orioles. They need to really get it going if they're going to make a comeback.
Well, the Yankees are in danger of being closer to the Orioles than the Rays in the standings.
True.
They need to be careful.
Very close to that. In the Central, the White Sox are playing pretty good baseball. They're 17 games above 500, 8-2 over the last 10, which is tied for the best record over that stretch in the American League on a 4-game winning streak. They've actually got the best run differential in all of baseball at plus 106.
Oh.
So they are, I mean, they're for real. This is not, just the best of the crummy Central Division. They're for real. Mm-hmm. Cleveland is behind them by 5.5 games, and then everybody else is double digits back. Kansas City, Detroit, and Minnesota. In the West, the Oakland A's are 13 games above 500 at 40-27, 2 games ahead of the Astros. 6 ahead of the Angels, 8 ahead of the Seattle Mariners, and the Texas Rangers are pulling at the bottom of that division. Only the Orioles are worse than the Rangers in the American League. In the National League, very bizarre East Division where the Mets are leading 7 games above 500 with a plus 17 run differential, which is the highest in the NL East. The Phillies are in second in that division, just above 500. They are 3 games behind the Mets. Then the Braves 5 games back, the Marlins 7 games back, and then the Nats 7.5 back. So nobody's really out of that division. That's by far the closest gap between first and last in the division across Major League Baseball. But nobody in that division is really screaming, "Hey, we are legit," just yet. The Mets the most out of the bunch, but they've got their own struggles that need to be cleaned up. The Central's got a really tight race right now where the Cubs and the Brewers are tied at 38 and 27. The Brewers have been red hot of late. They're 9-1 over the last 10 games. 3 games better than the Cubs over that span, which has allowed them to pull up into that tie. The Reds are 5 games behind the two of them. Then the Cardinals, who we mentioned, are 1-9 over that span. They're 6 games back in the division. And then the Pirates are 23 and 41, 14.5 back. And in the West, the Giants are leading at 15 games above 500, a game ahead of the Dodgers, who have the best run differential in the National League at plus 91. Slam Diego is 3 games behind the Giants, so they're certainly still in it, 9 games above 500. You know, they're not terrible, but they are 4-6 over the last 10, so they've been on a little bit of a cold streak, and they're going to need to pull that back together. The Rockies and the Diamondbacks are 15.5 and 20.5 games back, respectively.
Could I interest either of you guys in a NL wildcard game at Dodger Stadium, the Padres and the Dodgers? I mean, I don't think I would get up from my seat for the whole thing.
I mean, I know they've played at least one series since that first one. I watched the entire first series start to finish. I think their second series I missed. I think I was in Durham that week, so I missed the first 2 games, but then I watched their Sunday game for that second series. Have they played a third series yet this season?
I am looking that up right now. I don't think
they have.
Think so.
Okay, because I know I've been I've been paying attention to the fantasy stuff, but I haven't really been watching a lot of baseball recently, so I'd be disappointed if I had missed that. Because yeah, I mean, absolutely, any Dodgers Padres game is appointment viewing, and if it's a 1-game wild card, holy cow!
Mm-hmm.
I'm not leaving my seat. I'm not leaving my seat to go to the bathroom. I'm watching every single commercial. My ass is glued to the chair for that series, for that game.
With some spider tack or just regular glue?
Sure. if only if Garrett Cole recommended it, though.
Okay.
Because if he did, then I know it's for real. So
Dodgers at Padres next Monday night at 10 o'clock.
Okay, cool.
3 games.
So with that standings update, let's play a quick game of Contender or Pretender. These are the teams that are over 500 right now that, Evan, you thought would be better than they are, or
in the case of the Yankees only.
Yeah, right. Or in most of these cases, worse. So let's go ahead and actually start with that third one there, the Yankees. I know they're not the first on your list, but let's start with the Yankees because I'm actually kind of upset that you put them on this list because they're not pretending to be anything at this point, and they're certainly not a contender. They were a preseason pretender maybe, but they're not pretending to be anything right now. They're just bad.
Yeah. I mean, Buck Showalter says there's no flukes over 162 games. So, like, over the course of a baseball season, you're going to show who you really are.
Yeah.
And, like, back in the preseason, the Yankees, I mean, they were the best team in the American League. There's no excuse for them not to be the best team in the American League. Like, what exactly is the problem other than they're not scoring more runs than their opponent?
Shoot, we didn't even score any runs in our last game. We lost 7-0 to the Phillies.
Oh, well, I mean, there you go.
There Eagles, you go.
Eagles score a lone touchdown to beat the Giants.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we can strike them from this list. We don't even need to talk about that. Let's focus on the teams that Evan thought would be worse than they are right now, but they're above 500. So are they for real? Are they legitimate contenders or are they pretenders? We'll start with the Red Sox because earlier this season, after like the first or second week of the season, I basically asked Eric this and I was like, are they for real or are they going to come back down to earth? And he thought they were going to come back down to earth at the time. They haven't so far. So at this point, are they for real?
I mean, define come back down to earth though, because I thought they'd be a 500 team, and they're still better than that, but they're not in first place anymore. So
Well, they're not in first place anymore, but I mean that's a really tough division between with the Rays and the
Tampa Bay zoomed by
yeah.
them.
I mean Tampa Bay and Toronto are both excellent teams. I mean honestly, Toronto in any other division, except maybe the NL West, would be well more than 3 games above 500. I think.
Put Toronto in the NL East. I mean,
Oh my
geez.
goodness! If Toronto was in the NL East, they'd be like 15 games above 500 right now instead of 3.
Well, their pitchers would have to hit, so
Well, that's true. That might hurt them a little bit, but
That might-
I think that the rest of their bats would more than make up for that.
who cares about that?
But yeah, I mean, Boston is still 12 games above 500, so yeah, they're not in first place, but they're still continuing to play really good baseball.
Yeah, they've got good young players. I mean, Rafael Devers is really good. Xander Bogaerts is really good. I mean,
Sat
they
on Drew's bench yesterday and almost cost him. the
almost
game.
cost him the game, yeah. Because he decided to put Baez in the lineup, even though Baez has been demonstrably worse this week,
Baez
demonstrably worse all season.
Even taking away the fact that Baez didn't play yesterday, because he didn't find that out until later. He only scored like half a point all last week.
Yep.
Even in
but
our
anyway,
low-scoring league, that's trash.
yeah, I mean, but anyway, I think the Red Sox at this point, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they're for real. I mean, they've got some of the young guys, Alex Verdugo, who they got in the Mookie Betts trade. He was the centerpiece that went to the Red Sox. Mookie Betts is obviously the centerpiece of the entire deal.
Sure.
But he's played well. He's proving to be the prospect that the Red Sox hoped he would be when they made the trade. Does that mean that it was a smart trade? Well, no, because Mookie Betts is still way better than Alex Verdugo and probably will be for the duration. But nevertheless, he's playing good baseball. Their pitching's been better than I thought it would be, which is sort of a big deal because I thought the Red Sox pitching was going to be ass, and it's actually been serviceable. And another big thing is JD Martinez has reinvigorated himself apparently because he had a terrible season last year in albeit a shortened season. He looked like he was all done, and now he's back to being an all-star level hitter again.
Yeah, I mean, Eric summed it up perfectly. I thought the Red Sox would be so bad. They looked terrible last year. Like you said, JD Martinez couldn't hit the ball. Their pitching was garbage. So, like, what did they change going into this season that was going to be different? And Chris Sale wasn't going to pitch again this year. Like, there's nothing there. And then, turns out that they're the best hitting team. They certainly didn't really spare the Orioles in their more recent meetings, other than the first weekend of the season. Their pitching's been good enough, and their hitting has been exceptional, and that's going to win you a lot of ball games.
Moving on to the Blue Jays, I don't think we need to take too much time here because, I've already said how I feel about this. They're absolutely a contender. Yeah, they're, third place in that AL East division. They're 7.5 games back, but I think that gap is probably going to close a little bit. And even if it doesn't, I think that they do have a chance to still make it to the playoffs. I know that you've got the Astros who you have to deal with, and even if Oakland holds on and wins the West, the Astros are probably the favorite to get the wild card. But I could see 2 wild cards coming from the AL East, especially if the Yankees continue to just drop off the precipice, because at least those 3 teams will all have 2 teams to beat up on instead of 4 teams beating up on the Orioles.
Yeah, and the Blue Jays haven't even played the Orioles yet this season.
That's true.
Right? They still have 19 more free wins against the Orioles.
Yeah, and I believe I had that with the Blue Jays. I believe I was laughed at on this podcast a couple months back when I said the Blue Jays were going to be pretty good this year. Evan.
I'm pretty sure I had the
So-
Blue
That was
Jays in the
me,
playoffs.
I definitely did that.
Yeah,
I had the
so
Blue Jays in the playoffs, I'm pretty sure.
I
I'm
think I laughed
talking
at you
about-
too.
I'm talking about Evan here because
Okay.
apparently we're going off of who he thought was going to be good, and well, he's been wrong a lot. So, just letting you know that that's the case.
Yeah, both of you have the Blue Jays winning a wild card spot. I thought that was comical, frankly.
Not so much.
How you
anymore.
feeling now?
I mean, I don't know. It's written in pencil, so you know.
How about the Cleveland I-Words? They are 34-28, 6 games above 500, 5.5 back in the Central, but doing a lot better than Evan thought that they would be doing this season.
Yeah, because all they've done is just get rid of people. You know, they send Francisco Lindor up the road for a bag of beans, basically. I just had low expectations for this team. I didn't think they were going to be able to hit that well or pitch. I did think that they would kind of, take advantage of, their weaker opponents in their division. But Zach Plesac broke his thumb taking off his shirt a few weeks ago. What? So, it surprised me that they were doing as well as they were. I would call them a pretender, though, at this point. They're just not in the same... I mean, they're in the same league because they're in the American League, but they're not in the same league with Toronto and Boston, in my opinion.
I agree with that completely. Remind me, did Eric or I have the I-Words in the playoffs?
No way.
I don't see them on here anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, the reason I think a big part of the reason the Indians look so compelling is because the Twins have fallen off a cliff.
Oh, they're so bad.
I think Evan and I, or at least Evan, might have picked the Twins to win this
I
division.
definitely picked the Twins. You also have the Twins.
Yeah, I thought I might have done it too. And
think
so
Or you
I
have the
think
Twins in the playoffs.
I had the Twins in the playoffs. Did I have the White Sox winning the division, though?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, so at least you're right about that. But we were all wrong on the Twins, thoroughly
we
wrong.
are.
And so
13
when a
games
team
below
like that,
500.
like when a team like that bottoms out, somebody's got to take advantage of it, especially within the division. It looks like the Indians have done that, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily the real deal.
Yeah, I mean, you've also got the Royals and the Tigers, who are both trash. So you got 2 teams beating up on 3 teams, and honestly, I don't think Cleveland's necessarily going to be beating up on those 3 teams. They just might win more than they lose.
Yeah.
Finishing up the teams in the American League, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, or as Evan put it in the sheet, of Anaheim?
I don't know if they're still of Anaheim or not. I think they dropped the of Anaheim.
That'd be a shame if they did. But they are sitting 1 game above 500 right now, 33-32 after 65 games.
They've won 6 in a row.
You know, it's interesting because Mike Trout he's been out for a while
Injured.
now, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Like a good 3 weeks at least, maybe 4. He's missed a lot of time, and they're on a 6-game winning streak right now to get up above 500, 8-2 over the last 10. They still have a minus 16 run differential, but they've been playing pretty decently lately. But that's the thing. Any team can be streaky and have a 6-game winning streak. I mean, when you're playing 162 games, having a 6-game winning streak really isn't that crazy. I mean, I could see the worst team in the league having a 6-game hitting streak or winning streak just off of luck, but that doesn't mean that that's going to continue or that they're going to do it again at any point in the season. So I don't really see this as necessarily indicative of them figuring anything out. They were 5 games below 500 entering this streak.
I remember, I think it was in 2003, the Orioles had an 8-game win streak, and that team was terrible. They followed it up with a 12-game losing streak. So,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
really...
I mean, honestly, it's quite possible the only reason they're even on this list right now is because we've moved to a Monday podcast. Because if we were doing this tomorrow or Wednesday, they'd probably be 500 or below because they're starting a series with the Athletics.
Yeah, the Angels are thoroughly a pretender, in my opinion. Also, little Ewing theory going on here with Mike Trout being out.
Yeah, they need to get rid of him.
Oh,
He's gotta
man.
go.
Was
guys
Ewing Theory 3.0?
bringing them down.
Yeah, got to trade him to Baltimore, maybe. I mean, they're rebuilding.
Ryan Flaherty, like people on the radio said.
Exactly. Let's do that. So, I don't believe really in the Angels much. They've got Shohei Ohtani. They'll have Mike Trout back at some point, and they've got no pitching still.
Dylan Bundy.
Yeah, they have Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, Dylan Bundy has been thoroughly cut from Eagle Fang baseball. So,
why did you draft him?
Because he needed somebody. He gave me a couple good starts early in the season, and I got rid of him.
Okay.
My pitching rotation's coming into form, though. I like it. I picked up some good guys.
Mine seems to be slipping a little bit.
Yeah. Next.
Yeah.
So moving on to the
Angels
National League.
Contender. Yeah. So NL.
Yeah. Moving on to the National League. Second place in the NL East, one game above 500. The Philadelphia Phillies, coming off of a 2-game sweep of the Yankees, part of a 4-game winning streak that they are on. Well, they beat my Yankees, so I better hope to God that they're a contender, because otherwise I'm just going to get even more depressed on this show. But I get the feeling
Phillies are a pretender.
I had a feeling that Evan was going to say pretender, though.
The Phillies, they're just a colossal disappointment. They have all these famous people, and they just don't win. I thought it was Gabe Kapler. I thought he was the issue, right? I thought he was incompetent. We'll get to his team shortly. But like their pitching just isn't good enough. Their offense just isn't good enough. I mean, they seem like, the type of team that'll win 84 to 87 games and miss the playoffs.
So basically, they'll be like the Phillies have been the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. Except they cost twice as much now.
Yeah, exactly. This is just a classic underachieving team. I realized that they snuck over 500 because they beat the Yankees, but they've been floating just a couple games below for most of the season. I don't believe in this team. I mean, honestly, the NL East stinks. It's a bad division. Like the Braves have been underwhelming. And I picked the Mets to win that division pretty much because of something like this, where I'm like, none of these teams are that good. So here we are, and the Mets are in first place, even though they played like six fewer games than most teams or something like that, and because they had all the COVID stuff.
Isn't Noah Syndergaard hurt, or is it Jacob deGrom? One of them is hurt, isn't they?
DeGrom's been nicked up, but he's not expected to miss his next start.
Okay.
But he missed.
Syndergaard's coming back from Tommy John, and he had some sort of setback, and he was being shut down for 6 weeks.
Okay.
So
well,
that's not
if
great.
he does make it back, I mean, that's just going to make this team even better.
Well,
Hopefully.
even better. They're okay. Like they're not that good.
Well,
the team that's a disappointment
within the division. Within the division.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. The team that's a disappointment in this division is the Braves. They weren't good enough to make the contender or pretender segment of this show. They can't do anything right. What is the problem?
Yeah, no, they're 3 games under right now. So
yeah, they're terrible.
I'm gonna go out and say that the last 2 teams on this list are both contenders. I'll let you guys decide for yourselves what you think. But we'll start in the Central. I believe I had the Milwaukee Brewers winning this division. Remind me if I'm misremembering, Evan.
You have the Brewers.
Yeah. So the Brewers are on this list. They are 38-27. I mentioned earlier, tied for first with the Cubbies, 9-1 over the last 10 games. I think that they're a contender. They've got some really good pitching. Corbin Burns has been really strong for them this year. Their hitting has been surprising, but good. I mean, they had some early season series against the Padres. I think they played like 3 times over the three series over the course of 4 or 5 weeks, very early in the season. And I was watching a lot of those games. That was almost as much appointment television as we're talking about Padres Dodgers. Those were some good games, some fun games to watch, and tough games for the Brewers to have to play. But they've come out through all of that, playing against a lot of really good teams in the NL West and the NL East, and they're sitting at 11 games above 500. This is a legit team.
I thought the Brewers were overachieving, but that's not the case. Like their pitching has been exceptional. So like maybe if they fall off a little bit, like if they do make the playoffs, pitching is what plays in the playoffs. Like it's all about the pitching. So their pitching's been really good, and their offense has been good enough to just kind of, keep them rolling.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've got two of their
kinda
pitchers
the
on
Brewers.
my fantasy team, Burns and Brandon Woodruff. They've both been
Yeah.
phenomenal for me. I mean, Woodruff kind of, I think, laid a little bit of an egg last week. Actually, no, he pitched fine last week. Maybe it was Burns who laid a little bit of an egg last week. One of them did, but yeah, he had a start that only got me 2.75 on Saturday. Probably the difference maker in my loss, honestly.
John
But,
Means got me -3 a couple
Yeah,
weeks
there
ago.
you go. Regardless, this team is legit. And then the other team on our list, and actually, Eric, did you want to jump in on the Brewers before we move on?
Yeah, I guess the Brewers, they've been a little bit better than I thought. I thought it was going to come down between them and the Cubs for this division, and I think I picked the Cubs to win. Evan laughed at me for picking the Cubs. So again, Evan is looking like a fool for
Evan,
being
who
a
did
hater.
you take?
I had the Cardinals.
Tough break.
Sorry.
Anyway, so yeah, I do think the Brewers are pretty good. I figured again, I kind of thought that they and the Cubs would be both pretty good but not great, and whoever was pretty gooder, which I know is not a thing, would win the division. And I thought that might be the Cubs because I thought they just had higher upside with some of their stars. But the Brewers have proven me somewhat wrong with their pitching. Like, their pitching has been great. When they made the playoffs a couple of years ago, it was more because of their bats, and we kind of wondered would their pitchers be able to match up in the playoffs. But it's sort of the opposite now. I mean, they had to figure out how to win while Christian Yelich was hurt, and obviously pitchers don't just say, "Oh snap, Christian Yelich is hurt, let me pitch better." But they have pitched very well. Corbin Burns is a beast. They've got a good rotation. They're the real deal.
The last team on our list out of the NL West is the San Francisco Giants. And Evan, you'll have to let me know, did any of us even have them in the playoffs? Because I don't think we did.
I'd be stunned.
No. The Giants. I thought they would be one of the worst teams in the NL.
They've been really good. They're first
they have
place.
The best record in baseball.
They have the best record in baseball. Yeah, I mean they're basically a game ahead of the A's, and actually no, because the White Sox and the Rays are both better than them by like a game and a game and a half respectively. But the best record in the National League at least. They've been good. Kevin Gausman has pitched well. Anthony DeSclafani, who Cory picked up a few weeks ago, and he immediately gave him two awful starts, but he stuck with them, and he's given him two outstanding starts since then. He's been good lately. Buster Posey has had a resurgence. I mean, he's hitting home runs left and right for me on my team, which, we weren't sure if he was ever going to be that kind of a hitter again, and he is this year. They've been legit, and it's hard in this division with the Dodgers and the Padres both breathing down their necks.
They're hanging in there, though.
But they're hanging in there. Do you guys think that they're going to continue to hang in there, or do you think that a collapse is on the horizon? Because I hope that they can hang in there, but I also haven't watched enough of them specifically. I mean, I keep an eye on Buster Posey because he's on my fantasy team, but that's the only Giants player that I have. So I'm not really paying super close attention to the Giants and their games. I don't know if that either of you necessarily are either, but Evan at least pays more attention to baseball as a whole than I do. Eric normally would, except that we're in the middle of the NBA playoffs. So I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts. Do you think that the Giants can continue to hang in there the way they have?
I think they can. They seem to have something out there is working. I don't really know what it is.
I mean, when you're 15 games above 500, 65 games into the season, that's an indication that you are actually a good team.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Gausman is leading the Giants in ERA, wins, strikeouts, WHIP.
He's been fantastic.
Batting average allowed,
so
innings
good.
pitched. Like, where was this guy when he was with the other Orange team? Right? He was a complete mess before.
The other Orange
he had
and
no
Black
idea.
Team, no less.
and now he could win the Cy Young Award or something. Like, what? The same Kevin Gausman.
Let's pump the brakes on him winning the Cy Young Award.
I
That
didn't say
feels
he was going to win. I said he could.
yeah. There's going to be a Cy Young Award winner. His name's going to be Jacob DeGrom. Let's keep it real. But yeah, Gausman's been fantastic. He should be an All-Star this year, which is wild. And again, I think this sort of harkens back to the way the Orioles handled pitching when Gausman was there. Was the Dan Duquette crew, and they wouldn't let him throw cut fastballs or whatever. And he kind of has said, as politely as possible, yeah, the pitching coaches in Baltimore had no idea what the hell they were doing. So
yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah. Evan Longoria's been playing well for the Giants. He's of course injured, but before he got injured, he was playing well.
Yeah, I worry a little bit about the Giants just because it seems like they're fueling their success not so much with offense, but with pitching from guys like Kevin Gausman, who, yeah, he's having a great year, but he's also had seasons outside of Baltimore, like last year, where he was awful. And so we know that Gausman can fall off a cliff pretty quickly. But at the same time, I looked at the Giants back in like early May, and I said, oh, they're still up there. That's cute. They'll fall off eventually. Well, it's a month and a half later, and they're still there. So at some point, I have to accept the reality. This team's figured something out, and they're pretty good. Like, are they going to win the division? I don't know, because I still think the Padres and the Dodgers are better. I think one of those teams will probably catch up. But they'll still firmly be in the wild card chase for the entire season, I believe. I don't see them just plundering back to 500 or something like that. They're going to be there until the end of the season.
Johnny Cueto's got a 4.0 ERA this year, which is, okay. I mean, if an Orioles starting pitcher had a 4.0 ERA, I would take that, right?
I mean, I'm not really doing a double take at a 4.0 ERA, but
I mean, you should be able to score 4 runs on offense. So that'll keep you in some games.
But I guess.
Yeah. You don't want a guy who's going to go out there and give up 6 runs in 2 innings every single time, like Matt Harvey, for example.
There you go.
Yeah, I'd just be happy with good enough. Just good enough.
So that is everything on our show notes. Are there any other topics that popped into your guys' heads that you'd like to discuss before we say adios to the people?
Nothing sports related.
Something else on your mind, Evan?
I mean, I wanted to give a shout out, but we'll get to that shortly.
Well, then let's go ahead and get to our shout outs. Evan, who you want to shout out?
I wanted to shout out my sister, Farron Ash. She's been on this podcast before she came to pick some games and absolutely smoked us in the game picks. So she is a minister, and she gave the message for our church yesterday. It was really good. So yeah, shout out. Nobody listens to this podcast, but if somebody does listen to it, and you feel so inclined and want to check her out, you should do that.
I mean, I might actually be interested in listening to that. I don't really do a whole lot of church these days, but somebody who's been on the podcast, your sister no less, doing a service. Yeah. I totally
because a lot of preachers, when they get up in front of all the people and they get all worked up and just start screaming, then the Lord says you got to rise up. Those type of people. It's like, I just like, is this a bit? Like, what are you talking about right now? They're just performing. But like what she said was actually helpful to people, who live on the earth, in 2021. So, I appreciated that.
My shout out is for the Reddy family up in Connecticut. Rashonda and I went up there and visited her God family. I mentioned last week my shout out was for Austin Reddy and her fiance Sean Miller, who they had their engagement party this past weekend. It just so happened to line up with Rashonda's and my visit. But the Reddys hosted us, gave us a home base to kind of go around Connecticut from and visit some of Rashonda's her aunts, her mother, her father. We visited the John Oliver Memorial Sewage Plant in Danbury, Connecticut, which was cool. I got some pictures and a video of me doing John Oliver's bit on that. I'll have to share that with you guys later. But yeah, so it was a really good trip. So shout out to them. Some of them may be listening to this podcast, not live right now, but possibly later on, once it's on all the stuff. So thank you to them for being excellent hosts and for welcoming me in. That was really cool. Eric, any shout outs for you?
Nope, got nothing.
You don't want to shout out the person who brought you at least 3 chicken legs in the past half hour?
Okay, yeah, I'll shout out my parents who dropped off some chicken legs during the podcast. I actually asked them not to because I figured I'd just eat after the show, but they insisted. So they dropped off 3 chicken legs, ice cold Pepsi, and some rice pilaf. So I'm eating pretty good down here in South Carolina. So much love, appreciate it. I'm sure I'll have to do the dishes later to pay for this.
Very nice. And shout out to Sean Kennedy, who along with me will have to pick up the slack for Eric's lazy ass not showing up to softball this Wednesday.
A lazy ass. Let's slow down with the rhetoric.
Yeah, you're just on a beach somewhere, ice cold chilling while they're putting in some work trying to beat whoever they're playing.
Yeah, we lost by 1 run last week already, and this is a team that apparently doesn't win many games anyway. So
well, hey,
we got our work cut out for us.
The way I saw it, when he said that, I was like, well, you got 3 solid players you picked up, so maybe we're the reason why this game was competitive versus previous years where we had gotten rocked. So who knows? I also did find my outfielder's mitt, my Ichiro gloves, so I won't have to use my damn Clayton Kershaw A2000 pitcher's mitt playing softball anymore because that could have been a disaster. Fortunately, it never really reared its head. The one ball that went over my head, I don't think I would have caught even with the other gloves.
No,
so
probably not.
That ball was smoked.
Hopefully, you can also find your bat and not pop out in the last inning, as we're trying to come back from down by a run.
Who went 4 for 5 and who didn't? Yeah.
Touche.
Although again, shout out to you and Sean for that hell of a relay though. That was
a cool play. So Evan,
that was the sickest play I've seen on softball in a long time. That was great.
Guy cranks the ball over Sean's head in left center field. Eric was playing true left. Sean was in left center. Sean goes back to get it. I go out to cut it off, and he gets the ball to me, and it's a good throw. And so I turn, and I'm still sort of deep into the outfield because Sean had to run way back to get to this one, and I just let loose with one to home plate, and we got the guy at home.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was cool.
The throws were both on the money. When Cory turned to throw it, I saw him cut it loose because I had a perfect angle from it, and I was like, holy crap, we might actually get that guy at the plate if the person can catch the ball. And they caught it and put the tag on him and saved us a run. It was awesome.
Yeah, no, I let loose with just like, it wasn't really a guttural scream, but I definitely showed some excitement. I was ecstatic about that one. That was cool.
Pitcher's going to throw at you your next time at the plate. You're looking too happy out there.
Too many histrionics from Cory playing shortstop out there. Yeah, it's funny.
I actually played some pretty good shortstop. I had a couple of nice plays down there. Yeah. Good glove. So hopefully,
didn't boot any. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, it wasn't beginner's luck, and I can duplicate that if I play shortstop again next week.
Let's hope so.
Anyway. We've rambled enough about our personal lives. Let's go ahead and get through the final closing of the show. As those of you who listen to us regularly know, you can email us at thesportsballers@gmail.com if you have any topics you'd like to hear us go on rants about. We don't get a whole lot during the football off season, but if you feel so inclined, you can send it to us there. You can also just respond to all of our tweets that go out and let us know what you'd like to hear from us. You can follow us at SportsBallers18 on Twitter. You can also follow us individually. I am at Cory Puffett. Eric is at Quagmire67. And Evan is at Evan_Ash13. You can find us on Facebook. Make sure that you like our page and get alerts on when we go live, because we do our live shows on Facebook, at least for now. We may at some point switch that in the future, but for now, that's the platform that we're most comfortable with. It's worked pretty well for us. You can find us on YouTube. We do have a YouTube channel. We upload things there after the fact. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Podcasts. So all the big podcast hosts, you can find us there. If there is a podcast site that you use that we are not on, let us know, and we'll figure out how to send our RSS feed over there. I think that's pretty much it. So thank you all for joining us. This has been episode 148 of the Sports Ballers podcast. For Eric and Evan, I'm Cory Puffett saying good night, and we will talk with you all again next week.